Hey, what's up guys? It's probably not maybe your favorite YouTuber here. Okay, so just a bit of explaining to do. If you want to go straight to the story, skip to this timestamp. Now, just letting everyone know, this is probably going to be the last... I'm filming this a month before I upload it, so I hope nothing happens to my channel. But just so that people know, this is probably going to be my last YouTube video for at least the next little bit. I was able to do weekly stuff for the summer, but now school's going to be coming in, and that's going to take a lot of, projects and all that. I remember once when I was in high school, I met a college student, and I was considering asking them the question, do you guys have homework in college? I'm glad I didn't ask that, because I would felt very silly. Something I like to do in my spare time is write stories, and I've been meaning to post them on like Wattpad or whatever. But yeah, one of the stories that I wrote was a fanfiction for Alice in Borderland that I mentioned in my Why Mind Games Matter? Why Mind Games Deserve a Chance, that video. I just briefly mentioned it, and I figured I might as well just end off the summer by reading to you my little story. I forgot I split it into 2 parts, and I wrote it all on Reddit in like 8 chunks each. So like, I love this little text. I love how it just like spins up this texting bubble. I like how it just like moves around. I think it's so cute. I love it. Don't get rid of it. Don't get rid of it. No. Whew. Okay, anyway. So, when I read stories, I'll often fumble a line. And I'm not sure if I can really afford to just keep doing take after take after take until I get everything completely perfect. Maybe a more professional YouTuber or one that could actually hire an editor would be able to do that. But as of right now, I'm just going to read the story as I can. And if I fumble a line, I'm just going to go back and say it again, as if I were telling you a story in real life. I'm sorry if that's a little jarring. I'm going to try my best to make sure it happens as little as possible. Also, side note, this was written before Season 2 was released, and this is supposed to take place in the manga universe. So, and personally I think that my idea for a King of Hearts game, which is actually somewhat taken from someone else, like someone else had an idea for a King of Hearts game and it was fairly basic, and I tried to adapt it into something a bit more complex. So, sorry that this contradicts the stupid King of Hearts game in the show canon of like running around a maze while a bear is hunting you or something like that. Anyway, King of Hearts, part 1 of 2, 1/8. Nobu and his friend Chio both had unsatisfactory childhoods. Their parents were overly religious, and despite their best efforts to force their beliefs onto them, they simply didn't believe the same things they did. All they could do, though, was keep silent and keep growing up. The two met in high school and supported each other when they realized they were in identical circumstances. They collectively built up each other's courage to admit their feelings to their parents, only for both of them to be scorned greatly and disowned. Finding themselves homeless and without the money to continue attending school, the two of them decided they would stick by each other's sides until the end. They found shelter and went to sleep. Glad to be with each other, but also terrified at the thought of having to beg for food on the side of the road, spending every day worried they would even make it to the next. While neither of them spoke about it to each other, they both secretly wished some mysterious force would come down and just take their lives then and there, putting them out of their collective misery. Just then, they saw fireworks above, and in an instant, they both found themselves in the Borderlands. Their first game was ranked 8 of Hearts, and only involved the 2 of them. The game was called Prisoner's Dilemma, and involved them having to choose to either spare or sacrifice their friend within 5 minutes. If they both chose to spare, an axe would swing down and chop off one of their hands each. There were bandages in the corner of the room, but they would not be released from their chair until the decision was made. If one chose to spare and the other chose to sacrifice, the one who chose to sacrifice would be able to leave without a mark, while the other would be killed instantly via laser from the sky. If they both chose to sacrifice, the axe would come and remove all 4 of their collective hands. If this was the case, then they would be released from the chairs. But the game would not be considered cleared unless they managed to leave the building up the 50-story flight of stairs. There was no penalty for violence against each other once released from the chairs. There were only enough bandages to stop the bleeding of 2 separate hands, and, obviously, it is rather difficult to wrap your own or your partner's hand in a bandage when you have no hands yourself. Nevertheless, Nobu and Chio simply said nothing to each other throughout their 5 minutes. They both thought to themselves, I will spare the other. My friend will probably choose to sacrifice me, and I am okay with that. In the end, they both chose to spare, and each lost a hand. They both shouted at each other in anger, claiming the other should have sacrificed. At least then, one of them would have been put out of their misery, and the other would walk away with no injuries. Nevertheless, they ran for the bandages and helped each other stop the bleeding. They then painfully made their way up the 50-story flight of stairs and cleared the game. King of Hearts Part 1 of 2, 2/8. They never said a word to the other about the game since then, but subconsciously their bond had been strengthened to unbreakable steel. They stuck together like bricks on dried cement, and despite them each lacking a hand, they both managed to keep each other alive through every game they participated in. The last game they both participated in was the 10 of Diamonds that involved them having to take 3 circles and place one of them in front of 3 AIs each. They could only ask 3 separate yes-no questions to any of the 3 AIs. One of the computers would only answer with the truth, another would only lie, and the other would answer randomly. However, instead of actually answering with yes or no, they were going to answer with either 1 beep or 2. Not only is there no way to tell which computer is the one that speaks the truth, lies, or answers randomly, but there is also no way to tell if 1 beep means yes or no. Brackets, to anyone who wants to know the answer to this game, it's literally just the 3 gods riddle from TED Ed on YouTube, end brackets. 3 days later, the second stage begun. They both had 7 days on their visas. Up until then, they had always waited for the last possible day before participating in another game, wanting to spend as much time with each other as possible. But now they were beginning to wonder if that was selfish. Before, they were just aimlessly playing games with no end to them in sight. But as they saw the King of Clubs and Queen of Diamonds collapse on the first day, they both began to reconsider. Now there was a clear end goal in sight: beat all 10 of the remaining games. What happens when they're all done? Do they all get to return to the real world? What if they selfishly wait until their visa is down to 1 day and beat the final game when they could have done it only a day before and saved a lot more people whose visas expired that day? Furthermore, since these games could be participated in whenever instead of having a set time to play them at night, what if they went to the game arena mere hours before their visa was up, only for it to have already been started by a separate group of players, and they take more than those few hours to beat it? Or worse, don't beat it at all. Nevertheless, seeing the Queen of Spades be cleared only on the second day gave their souls a rest. It seemed the games were clearing themselves at this point. At this rate, they will most likely all be cleared before their visas are even close to expiring. Perhaps all they had to do was wait. King of Hearts, Part 1 of 2, 3/8. Seeing the blimp crash into the ground made them excited, though. Who was it that was clearing these games? They had participated in the 8 of Spades previously, which started off simple enough. The rules simply said to sit in a rowboat with a guy in a horse head mask as he rowed them to the other side of the lake. Violence against the horse head was not allowed, but other than that, they simply had to relax, it seemed. They tried to start a conversation with the horse head, but he remained silent. All seemed fine until the middle of the lake, where the horsehead suddenly stopped rowing and whipped out a machine gun, attempting to shoot the both of them. They both reacted in time and dove into the lake, only to find it filled with electric eels and sharks. Suddenly, the objective became clear: swim to the other side without being stung, eaten, or shot. Even though it took them all they had, they did it. After about half a day of catching their breath, they both agreed that Spades games were even more difficult than Hearts at this rate. They were lucky enough to never stumble upon a Spades game afterwards, but now really wanted to meet whoever it was who conquered this Queen of Spades, one of the hardest of them all. Somewhat expectedly, they found an extremely muscular man with an abundance of weapons on him, but what was surprising was that he was sitting on the side of the road just outside the game arena, crying his eyes out in despair. This was a proper reaction to someone who had just beaten a Hearts game, while failing to find the no-death solution. But usually not the reaction to beating a Spades game. "Hey, what's wrong, buddy?" Chio asked. "You okay?" Nobu asked. "The F it looked like, you idiots," he said, coughing up the last words and continuing to cry in despair. The two of them didn't know what to say. It was clear he had experienced some kind of extreme loss. Nevertheless, they summoned the courage to sit on either side of him and hug him. "Careful," he said, wiping his nose and sitting up straight. "You might set one of them off," he said, referring to one of his guns. "I'm sorry you can't feel you can take it anymore," Nobu tried to sympathize. "But you just beat a Queen game, so I assume you got 12 days on your visa now."
You can relax. At this rate, all the games should be cleared long before you have to clear another one. I don't want to clear another game. I didn't want to clear this one. They both paused.
King of Hearts Part 1 of 2 4/8. Then I came here because I was hoping I have no interest in continuing to play these effed up games anymore, but I just couldn't do it. No matter how hard I tried, I just couldn't bring myself to lose. He sobbed for a while longer before finally getting up. No matter, he said as he took one of his guns from behind him and pointed it straight ahead. She failed to be a match to me, so the only one left who can pose enough of a challenge even to get past my instincts, he loaded his gun, is him. Nobu and Chio looked ahead. He appeared to be looking at the King of Spades blimp. The big guy, eh? Nobu asked. Nobu, Chio whispered. I'm not talking about him. Which him? Shut it, you idiots, the muscular guy interrupted. I suggest you don't follow me. I can't guarantee whether I'll survive this one, and I can't guarantee I'll either. The King of Spades, Nobu pondered. Why does it keep moving? There isn't a game arena for it. Instead, all of this effed up country is the arena. The effer put zero thought into his game. It's literally just you, him, the game's cleared. If he, everyone else, it's game over. Wait, said Nobu. I'm so done waiting. Please don't follow me, the muscular man began walking towards the blimp. Just one last thing, Nobu shouted as he stood up. Are you trying to say that this entire time that we've been trying to stay out of these games, we've technically been participating in the King of Spades and have just gotten incredibly lucky so far? Yep, spot on. If you want to avoid him, go play another game. The one place he never goes is to other game arenas. Now beat it, please, he said as he continued walking. Chio stood up too and looked at Nobu. They discussed what they were just told. No matter what they did, they were participating in a game either way. If this was the case, and if the King of Spades could come down at any moment, even, or rather, especially, when they were asleep, then maybe it was best to participate in a game either way. But which to choose from? They finally managed to agree on the Jack of Hearts. After all, it was their unbreakable bond that had kept them together this long, and it was what made them especially good at both hearts and clubs games. Most people struggled with hearts, so perhaps it was best to get one of them out of the way. And it was probably best to go with the supposed easiest out of the three. However, to their somewhat disappointment, they found themselves too late, and the game had already reached its player capacity limit and started by the time they arrived. Then they remembered what the muscular guy said. The King of Spades never goes to other uncleared game arenas. Which meant, if they stuck right outside this arena, they should be safe, or at least safer than anywhere else. And if the game wasn't beaten, they could go in next. King of Hearts Part 1 of 2 5/8. But to their dismay, the game just kept going and going. For the entire night, the game kept dragging and never seemed to stop. Just what was this Jack of Hearts game that was taking so long to either win or lose? Nevertheless, it began to rain, and they both decided they had enough and made it back to their shelter. The beat-up homeless shelter they were planning to stay at back in the real world, which had now been almost completely torn to shreds. It looks like whoever's playing the Jack of Hearts are taking their sweet time, Nobu said with frustration as he looked and saw the blimp still floating in circles around the arena, with no sign of being defeated. I guess we should just pick another. If not the Jack of Hearts, why not the Jack of Clubs? Chio asked. Nobu simply remained silent. Chio looked at him and noticed something odd. His gaze had shifted slightly. She went up to the window next to him and followed his line of sight. You can't beat. Dude, why not? Everyone here has nothing to do but whine about how hard hearts games are. If we can't take the easiest out for them, why not the hardest? What if that one's different? What if it involves some sort of twist where we have to deal with each other? What if that one really does have a no solution? After all, look, not one of the 3 face card hearts games has been beaten yet, and one of them has been being played for the last 9 hours at least. And the way that guy talked, it seems these games can't be beaten without someone, whoever's in charge of them. Maybe something is different about these ones. Well, if you're that worried, I'm fine clearing it by myself. Nobu, Up until now, we've been keeping each other alive, but the real world isn't all sunshine and rainbows either. We both know that. The games will all be beaten soon anyway. Probably. These games have been training us for the frustrations of the real world, is my prediction. This might be our last chance to practice without each other's help. Are you saying you don't want to be around me? Not at all. I'm simply stating that we might not always be here for each other. There was a long, awkward silence. Chio simply looked at the floor and Nobu kept eyeing the blimp. He wanted to give off a tough impression, but deep down he was simply scared to shift his gaze anywhere else. In that case, I don't mind trying to beat the Jack of Clubs myself. Nobu continued being motionless. After about a minute, he turned and gave Chio a big hug. You stay alive for me, yeah? You stay alive for me. King of Hearts Part 1 of 2, 6/8. Nobu and Chio both put on some rags lying around as coats and made their long walks towards their second games of choice. On his way, Nobu saw many people hidden away in corners and under broken down bus stop huts. It was like walking around a busy street at night back in the real world, except there wasn't anyone here who wasn't broke. It was a rare occurrence, but Nobu felt somewhat on top for once. The only one with a clear destination in mind. He was almost there, a tall skyscraper, when all of a sudden he heard a gunshot. He looked behind himself and saw someone falling to the ground as blood splattered behind him. Then another. He quickly caught on just as someone else was screaming the obvious, "The King of Spades! He's here!" before suddenly being cut off by his own. Nobu kept running as fast as he could. The ground darkened even more than before as he heard the blimp roaring above him with more gunshots getting closer and closer. Finally, he dived into the building and quickly loosened the door behind him. To his shock, the King of Spades jumped down right in front of the door and looked right at him through the glass. He had a hood on covering his whole face and had even more weapons than the muscular guy he was talking to earlier. Hey now. I'm in this arena. I'm gonna be participating in this game. You can't come near me. Right? Right? The king simply put his hand on the window. I feel sorry for you, kid. With that, he simply grabbed onto a rope dangling down from the sky and soared away. Nobu caught his breath and looked behind him. There were 7 people in front of him, all looking with sheer boredom. The building itself looked in pretty good shape. It seemed to be the lobby of some big office building. But there were beds and pool tables and TVs and swimming pools and everything. Suddenly, one of the people spoke. Yeah, 6 people is probably enough. Welcome, everyone. It is time to start this game. Huh? Nobu shouted. You're the King of Hearts? Why so surprised? The man asked with a simple smile on his face. Nobu didn't know how to answer. The thing was that this man looked not much older than himself. He didn't seem to have much, for lack of a better term, special about him. He didn't seem at all muscular or even that smart. He just seemed like a regular average dude. Anyway, I have good news for all of you. I'd like to congratulate each and every one of you to the fullest. I'm sure you all came to this game expecting it to be the hardest game of all, but I am here to assure you this is going to be the easiest and safest game you have ever played, even compared to what lies in the real world. Just shut up and tell us the rules, one of the other players said. He had glasses on and a buttoned shirt. Despite him also not seeming to be anything to be impressed by, his voice sounded like he meant business. No wonder he came to an office building. King of Hearts Part 1 of 2, 7/8. Whew, attitude. I can tell you that will get you nowhere, because the game we are playing together is, obviously, a difficulty of King of Hearts. But don't let that intimidate you, because the title of this game is... Nobu clenched his fist. Just what the hell was he gonna have to do this time? And without Chio. Wherever she was, he hoped she was safe. Relaxation. What? Huh? A female player asked back. You heard me. And the best part is, there's almost no rules. The only rules are to relax and have fun. The only thing not allowed here is violence. If anyone gets physically hostile towards anyone else, they will get free LASIK from the sky and feel anger no more. What? Nobu shouted, trying to contain his nervous laughter. But what are the game clear and over conditions? Another man asked, wearing a suit and tie, also seeming to fit into the office building environment. The only game over condition is attempting to leave this building. Other than that, you may do as you please. So please, Let's all have fun after the tiring last few weeks you all had. We even have electricity here, and plenty of running water. A few players had managed this before at some hotel, but that's been burned down now, so this is quite literally the only place you'll find it. We've got plenty of working video games and movies with working discs, and everything you could possibly desire from a hotel retreat. Yeah, we get it. This is a paradise. But you're not fooling anyone, Nobu said. We all got visas expiring. Yeah, that's right, another woman shouted. Mine expires today. Mine expires tomorrow. Mine expires in an hour. Everyone, please calm down. I assure you, you are all completely safe. As long as you are participating in this game, your visas are all on pause. What? Everyone shouted collectively except one man who simply stayed silent. You heard me. Your visas all stopped counting down the moment you entered this building, and will never start again for as long as this relaxation game is in progress. But how do we clear this game? Nobu asked. King of Hearts Part 1 of 2, 8/8. The King sighed. If you really must know that badly, the game clear condition is as simple as the game run by the gentleman who was right outside the front door a few seconds ago. My own death. Huh? But you just said we can't use violence. And why would you want to? There is nothing that can harm any of you here. You guys have done it. You took the risk of taking part in the King of Hearts game and shall now be rewarded greatly. So please, do as you please. I feel no need to say this, but it's simply conventional. The king held up a timer and a button. He pressed the button, and the timer started counting upwards. Behind them, the windows turned from showing the mucky reality of outside to showing a much more peaceful, sunny scenery. Game, start. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 1/10. All 6 players simply stood and stared at the King of Hearts. Geez, quit the mood, the king claimed. Didn't you hear? The rule is to have fun and to relax, so stop being so tense. How about we go do some yoga, eh? I've got hundreds of those training tapes here somewhere. I think they're on the 20th floor. Hey dude, listen, said the man in the suit as he approached him. Cut the bull. We've survived this long. We all know the true nature of these games. You think any single one of us walked into the King of Hearts game having only played clubs and figuring this would be a piece of cake on a vacation? I'm only assuming here, but I'm pretty sure none of us are that naive. We chose this game because we've played countless Hearts games before. We've people to save our own skins, only to realize everyone could have been saved. What's your name? The king asked the man, not having his smile fall 1 inch. He simply blinked twice and tilted his head as he asked the question. What's in it for you? The man responded. Well, remember, the king said as he took a few steps back and looked like he was going to explode with laughter. No violence is allowed here, and the only game clear condition is for me to... If you can even call that game clear. Clearly there's a catch, one of the women interrupted. I assure you, there is no catch. Everything I told you is the complete and whole truth. There are no secrets. I am telling you, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Most people who end up in the Borderlands never come across a game such as this one. And I know this is somewhat threatening, but my only intent is to keep you here until we all become friends. Then, maybe you guys won't even want to leave. The king said all of this with a big smile on his face, only being slightly cracked by his brief pause. Just what is the Borderlands? Nobu asked. What is this place we're all in? This question, of all things, is what caused the king's smile to fall. How... The king cleared his throat, getting choked up. How about I show you guys around the building? This place has over 50 floors, and I put a lot of effort into each one to make them as pleasant as possible for you all. No thanks. We'll look through them ourselves, the man with the button shirt said. He motioned for the others to follow him, and they all did. Okay, if that's really what you guys want, the king called after them, sadly. But remember, you guys should be having fun. We heard you the first 2 times, the other woman shouted, as they made their way towards the stairwell. I'll be down here, If you guys want to play Portal 2 co-op or something, just let me know. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 2/10. Everyone entered the stairwell. Nobu and the only man who hadn't said a word so far were the last to enter. They simply looked at each other, and the quiet man went in. Nobu followed, but not before looking back at the king. He was simply sitting on the couch, slouched over and eating a grape from the fruit bowl in front of him. Nobu went on inside and followed them up. His voice echoed in the stairway, so he spoke quietly. "Guys, that guy seems really upset," Nobu pointed out. "What are you, some kind of rookie?" the man in the suit stopped and asked. He was in the lead up the stairs. "This is a game of hearts. It's meant to play with your head. If you ask me, no, actually I'm 100% certain without a shadow of a doubt that all that guy's doing is just an act. Who knows, maybe he isn't even the king and is just a player like us. Maybe the real game hasn't even started yet and he just wanted to be listened to for a few seconds." "Then how do you explain him changing the scenery on the windows?" "Beats me. Maybe he just found that timer thing. Maybe he's playing a different game than us that involves him having to get us to feel sorry for him or something. After all, how do you explain his timer? It was like a effing kitchen timer. Everything in here is the most high-tech stuff we've seen, but that, of all things, is like something you could get at a dollar store. I'm telling you, there's something else fishy being cooked up for us behind the scenes." "Wait a sec," one of the women said. "How do we know you're not the real King of Hearts?" "Yeah," the other woman shouted. "I was the second person to arrive and you were the first. It was just you and him, so maybe you put him up to it." "What? Even if that were true, why would I essentially just give it all away like what I just said?" "You know, it might not be the first person who entered. Maybe it was the last," the first woman growled as everyone suddenly looked down at Nobu. "What? Me?" "Yeah, you," the woman responded. "You pretended to be running from the King of Spades, and how do we expect that you just so happened to run in here at the last second? Didn't he even say he felt sorry for you, like he knew you?" "I swear I had never even seen him before. I was running for my life from him." "Everyone shut it," the man in the suit shouted as everyone looked back at him. "I do not believe for a second that the real king is any one of us. In fact, the idea of the guy downstairs not being the real king was just a theory. He probably is the real deal, but I just meant maybe the king is sitting on the top floor in a dark hood tapping his fingertips together maliciously as he laughs at everything we say through security cameras." Everyone looked at the cameras in the stairwell. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 3/10. "Or something, I mean," the man said. "But haven't we all learned enough from these heart games? They make you think you can't trust each other, when in reality, trusting each other is exactly what you must keep doing in Hearts games, no matter what. This game wants us to be suspicious of each other. That's what every single Hearts game has ever tried to do. We mustn't fall for it. We've got to stick together. And the sooner we find a way to that guy, the sooner we can hopefully clear this game and have it be over with." "But how do we—" "Him," Nobu asked. "That's what we're going to try and figure out. We'll check the floors together and look for clues." "Shouldn't we split up?" the woman asked. "That way we cover more ground?" "Out of the question. We must stick together in Hearts games, no matter what. I have no doubt that the moment we go separate ways, the game will start pulling the strings. Soon we'll all be at each other's throats and all be lasered. Besides, the guy said all our visas are on pause, and I doubt he's not allowed to bluff. So we have quite literally all the time in the world. Let's go one floor at a time." "No," the silent man said. Everyone suddenly looked at him. Up until now, he hadn't said a word. "That is precisely where the game is trying to trick us. We do not have all the time in the world at all." "What? You mean you really think he's lying about the rules?" the man in the suit asked. The quiet woman answered. "I mean, this is a Hearts game. The rules always tried to manipulate the way they were revealed to the players. Maybe in face card games, or even just the king, they're allowed to straight up lie." "No, I'm not saying that," the quiet man responded. "I don't think just because this is the supposed hardest Hearts game means the dealer is allowed to lie." The chatty woman jumped in. "But you just said the game is supposed to be the hardest, and he only just said that it was supposed to be the easiest and safest game." And I think he's right about that. I think there's not a single thing that's dangerous. In fact, how about we get out of this cramped stairwell and look around for a bit, just to confirm my theory. King of Hearts, Part 2 of 2, 4/10.
Before anyone could object, he went on ahead up the stairs. Everyone hesitated, but soon followed him. The building was too good to be true, with elite party equipment on every single floor. The closest thing that came to weapons were the cutlery in the kitchen, but even they had some of the dullest knives any of them had seen. There was enough of a blade to cut food, but not nearly sharp enough to cause any sort of bodily harm. It seemed the only things that could actually cause harm was if another human did as much as choke them or beat them up, or if someone were shoved out the window. Even if the impact with the ground didn't them, it had been established that simply leaving the building would register a game over. However, even the windows had no noticeable way of opening them, as they still showed a fake scenery showing sunshine, a bright forest, and lakes. Besides, it had already been established that any act of violence would be prevented on the spot with a quick laser to the head on the oppressor. "It's as I thought," the quiet man finally spoke his first words since the stairwell. "What?" Nobu asked, getting a bit impatient. "What's your big theory?" "Nothing in here is designed to be suspicious at all. I think the king's plan really is for all the players to simply relax and have fun. And since our visas are on pause, we could quite literally spend an entire lifetime here, and perhaps most players would have been driven to such desperation for a hint of proper society by now that they would accept it. But the thing is, our visas may be on pause, but not the people outside. All the other players outside still have their visas ticking down every moment. All they can do is beat the other 11 face card games. But then what? Then they're stuck with this one and only face card game continuing to be in progress forever and ever, or at least until the king of old age. But everyone else's visas will have expired long before then. Even if someone beat every other face card game, that would only give them 95 days, a little over 3 months. The king here is quite young. I think he's got quite a few years in him yet. This game is all about whether we can overcome our greed and desire to stay in a luxury place like this and focus on meeting the game's clear condition. Sure, we might say we'll beat it once all the other games are completed, but who's to say we'll be so willing to risk going back outside once we've gotten so comfortable here? I believe this is the true nature of this game." "Well, he miscalculated when we came in," the man in the suit responded. "We're not going to let our guard down for a second, right everybody?" Everyone nodded their heads. "We can't use violence to the king's life, which makes sense. Otherwise, this would be an easy win for a hearts game. Instead, this is a battle of psychology. We must tap into the king's inner psyche to get through to him." Everyone was silent. "Are you saying we have to convince the king to himself?" the quiet woman asked. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2 5/10. Precisely. These Hearts games are always designed so no one can beat them without feeling a little bit disgusted with themselves. If you guys aren't up to the task, you shouldn't have come here. So you can go sit on your Sis up here, and the ones who feel up to it can go downstairs and find him. We have to do the opposite job of a crisis helpline. "You're getting a bit vicious, I think," Nobu said quietly. "Yeah? Haven't you been vicious in a few of these Hearts games? Just how many times have you been tricked into ing your allies?" Nobu knew the answer to him was never, but he felt no one would believe him. It would come off as unnecessary bragging, and there was overall just no point to answering. Everyone was caught off guard to the sound of a door opening. It was the King of Hearts, coming from a stairwell. "Hey guys, I was just, wondering how everyone is doing. Do you guys have any questions about the building layout? Can I get you guys anything? We've even got, soda somewhere if anyone—" "Shut up, you idiot. We know your secret," the guy with the button shirt interrupted. Everyone else almost asked what he was talking about, but quickly stayed quiet. What? "Yeah. You can stop acting all innocent. We know you're just trying to trick us to wanting to stay here forever, while everyone else waits to get hit in the head with a laser. So you can quit acting like a good cop and show your true colors. Go on, do an evil laugh or whatever you want to do." To everyone's surprise, the king actually had a tear coming out of his eye, and only a moment later, he broke down and kneeled in front of him. "I'm sorry," he cried. "I swear I don't want to hurt any of you guys. I wanted everyone to come in here, but you guys really wanted to start, and I thought I would test your patience if I waited any longer, so I started it as soon as that kind soul came in." But I swear, I'm not like the other citizens. I really do not want to hurt any of you. I was just hoping I could make the Borderlands better for you guys. Everyone was quiet, not sure at all how to react. For a while, they all just watched as the king continued sobbing on the floor. Finally, when Nobu's heart had enough aching, he went over, kneeled down, and hugged the king. "Don't hug him, you idiot," the guy in the suit said. "It's okay," Nobu said. "It's okay, man. I believe you." The king continued crying and put his head on Nobu's chest.
Hi, Teddy. Hi, Ted.
King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 6/10. "Hey," Nobu tried to think of what to say. "What's your name?" My name is Kokoro." "What a load of bullshit," the button shirt guy proclaimed. "Kokoro literally means heart, and you're saying this is a hearts game. Stop ing with us." "I'm not lying, I swear." "Buddy," Nobu began to ask, "why did you become a citizen of the Borderlands? And how?" Nobu saw the guy in the shirt make a ooh motion with his mouth before holding up the OK sign with his hand and winking. Nobu frowned. He wasn't asking as a means to get information. Or at least, not just for that, he thought. Okay. I'm not supposed to tell any of you this, but screw it. I'm the King of Hearts after all." He put his head up, but continued looking down with his eyes. He then began chuckling. And here I am crying like a big baby. Nobu smiled. "When I was on Earth, I hated my life. Socializing was so difficult, and the only people who were nice to me were all part of this sort of cult thing. I didn't want to join them. I knew what they were, but they were the only people who treated me like one of their own. I always kept it in my mind that I couldn't fall for it. I couldn't actually join them. But I had to keep some sort of act going, or else they would probably have kicked me out or something. Still, so you know what it does to you when you're forced every day to say you're a rotten sinner, and so is everyone else. Still, despite that, I saw them as my only friends. But then suddenly, I remember a shooting started happening. People came in with a gun and started ing all of us. I dove under a table, of course, but then I put my hands up and tried to tell them I'm not with them. But they shot me before they could even react to my statement. I doubt they were even paying attention, but when the bullets hit me, I should have been dead, but instead I woke up here." King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 7/10. Almost everyone in the cult was there next to me, with only a few exceptions. But most of them turned to me with disgust and told the others I had rebelled against their family in the final moments of my life, and that they had to resort to proper judgment. They then all tried to attack me, but I ran. I didn't know where I was going, but I just ran into some building, and the next thing I knew, some voice began talking about a game called Kill or Be Killed, Ace of Hearts. There were then a ton of weapons on a table that we were allowed to use. I didn't grab any of them and tried to hide behind a rock. It was like a nature museum or something, I think. Someone else picked up a gun and tried to shoot me. I thought he missed, but it was actually just a blank. The voice explained that anytime we successfully hit a target with one of the fake weapons, we would gain one of their visa days, and they would lose one. I had no idea what it was talking about at the time, but the time limit was only 1 minute. Everyone else was running toward me, and I stayed behind the rock only for a moment. I couldn't believe what was happening. All my life I just wanted friends, and now the only people who showed compassion towards me were trying to kill me. I got up and ran towards the table, screaming with fury. I think it caught them off guard because they never seen me yell before. I saw knives and axes, all with dull blades, but I picked up one of the machine guns, and even though it only fired blanks, I shot at all of them. They all began pouncing me and beating me up, and I just kept shooting at everyone I could. Finally, the minute was up, and a laser came down over each of them and shot all of them in the head. They all collapsed, and only I was left alive. Game cleared. Congratulations. There is only one winner, it seems. You have gained 38 visas for your kills. We recommend you spend these visa days wisely and enjoy your time. And of course, good luck on your next game. Kokoro collapsed to his knees as he looked at all of his former friends turned enemies lying dead around him. Nobu and everyone else could do nothing but stare at Kokoro with no idea how to react. Yeah, well, we're not buying it, the suited guy said. Kokoro stood up and looked at the guy with eyes of pure fury. He began stomping towards him. You hole. I spill out my heart to you and you still think I'm a liar? I welcome you here, I give you everything I could desire, and yet you still treat me like... Nobu stood up and quickly held the king back. No, Kokoro. If you lay hands on him, then by your own rules you'll die. You idiot, the suited guy shouted. That's what we want, isn't it? We have to clear this game, Kokoro yelled in his face. Not like this, Nobu shouted. He held Kokoro back with all his might. For a moment, he felt he was going to lose him, but the quiet man joined in and also held him in his spot. This was quickly followed by the two women who also helped them. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 8/12? I don't know how long this is. Please, Kokoro. Nobu began crying as he put his head on Kokoro's shoulder, who was beginning to calm down. Not like this. Please. Kokoro finally slumped over and hugged Nobu back. Everyone was mostly quiet after that. They all took a seat on one of the many comfy massage chairs in front of a fireplace. Only the suited guy and button shirt guy sat on different sofas than the rest of the group. Kokoro told the entire group everything, about how after that, he never managed to summon the courage to try and talk to anyone else, and felt most of them would reject him anyway, to him being a stranger. So he continued playing the games completely alone. During the second stage, he participated in all 3 club games, but didn't manage to keep in touch with any of the people who beat the games with him. He tried the Jack of Hearts afterwards, and while he won, obviously, he felt so disgusted with himself afterwards that he couldn't take another one. By the time he exited the game arena, he heard an announcement that only the King of Hearts remained uncleared, and he made sure to stay as far away from the blimp as possible. He simply sat by the bay and waited, and watched, as he saw the final blimp explode and crash into the ground. Finally, he heard an announcement directed at everyone who had survived that long, simply asking them one question: if they wanted to keep playing these games forever, or refuse. Kokoro didn't want to return to the real world, but he didn't want to stay here either. He thought that maybe if he refused, the beam would come down and kill him, permanently removing him from ever having to think about anything ever again. And yet, despite this, as he got his lips to form the words unfortunately were not the ones he was hoping to say. I accept. Everyone continued comforting Kokoro for the hours that followed, giving him some apple juice and some grapes, which were the only things he could bring himself to consume in the middle of his sobbing. Finally, the suited man broke the silence. Yeah, if I may interrupt this vocal stalemate, what happened to those who refused? Are you saying you finally believe me? Kokoro asked, speaking the first clear words since the button shirt guy confronted him. I'm simply wondering what your answer is. Kokoro paused. I don't know. Both the suited guy and the button shirt guy, who were on opposite couches, rolled their eyes. And I don't think anyone knows, Kokoro continued. I managed to talk to a few of the other citizens as we were designing our respective games. A few of them said they saw those who refused blast into a ball of blinding white light and then seemed to disintegrate. But other than that, I have no idea. So they died, button shirt guy said. I mean, it sure sounded like it, Kokoro responded. But if they were just going to die, why didn't they just take care of it with the laser? That's true, the suited guy added. Why the light show? The quiet girl jumped in. Maybe those who refused really did return to the real world. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 9/12? Which is just as well, Kokoro claimed. They can have the real world. There's nothing waiting for me back there. After another brief pause, the suited guy joined them in comforting Kokoro. Or so it seemed. In reality, he just stroked his leg a few times before he searched in Kokoro's pocket and found the timer he was using. Hey, what are you doing with that? Kokoro asked. He pressed the button, and the timer stopped as the windows began to fade back into showing the reality of outside. Hey, you can't do that. Only I'm allowed to have that, Kokoro shouted. Why? He asked. It's not against the rules. Everyone stood up, except for Kokoro, as they all looked out onto the huge view of outside. While the fake scenery made things all bright and colorful, while it wasn't raining outside anymore, the reality of outside was still very gray and cloudy. Instead of trees, there were buildings, all beaten up. And instead of animals, there were people, both shivering on the side of the street and lying dead on the ground. And instead of birds chirping, there were the screams of people desperately trying to survive all the games that remained. Nobu looked back. Kokoro was the only one who remained on the couch, with his head in his hands, as he refused to look out the window. Kokoro, the suited guy said, these people need to be set free. They deserve it. Even if you feel they failed you in the real world, they have lives to live. Lives they could be living right now, instead of constantly throwing them on the line just to stay alive for the next couple days. That's not living any more than you felt you've been living. The one thing that got Kokoro to look towards the window was the blinding orange light of another blimp blowing up. The fourth one, the Jack of Clubs. Chiyo, Nobu whispered. Everyone looked towards him. She's a friend who said she'd participate in that game. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 10/12. Nobu looked back at Kokoro, who simply looked depressed. She's a good person, Kokoro. A lot of people are. Nobu went to Kokoro and kneeled beside him. You have no idea how sorry I am that you lived a life only seeing the bad of humanity. But just because you haven't seen the good in action doesn't mean it doesn't exist. If Chiyo were here, she would be comforting you just as much as I am. She might even be doing a better job at it. Don't worry, Nobu, Kokoro said, finally seeming to regain his confidence. I may have thrown my life away, but you, Chiyo, and the rest of you all here still have a chance. I promise I will end this game for you, on the condition you must promise me that you won't participate in another game. Stay alive. You'll all have at least 13 days. That should be more than enough for the other games to be beaten. Stay on the outer borders of the Borderlands, and you should be safe from the King of Spades. He tends to go more towards the center where there's more people. And don't worry, he's not invincible. Someone will get him. But you must stay alive. And when your time comes, refuse permanent residency here. And no matter what, no matter how bad your lives seem to get, promise me you'll keep living. For my sake. Everyone was quiet for a while. Then Nobu spoke. How about we play your game? Just for one day, we play it. Properly. Kokoro looked towards Nobu, and then towards the others. They all smiled at him, even the suited and buttoned shirt guys. For the rest of that day, the 7 of them did exactly as Kokoro told them to at the start. They relaxed, had fun, ate, did karaoke, played Portal 2 co-op, everything the place had to offer. The quiet man apologized for judging Kokoro too quickly, and everyone else was quick to do the same. Kokoro's spirits had risen to heights he never thought it would have. Then finally, at sunset,
He hugged them all goodbye. Are you sure there's no way to save you? Nobu asked. I'm positive. But hey, don't for a second feel guilty. This Hearts game was meant to be different than all the others, and at least for me, it was. I thank you guys, my friends, for giving me the best day of my life. Every single one of them managed to shed a tear. Kokoro then walked towards the front door. He stared outside, the true outside. He took one final look at his new friends and saluted them. They all waved back. Finally, Kokoro looked back to the door, closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and opened it. A laser came down from the sky and shot the King of Hearts dead.
King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 11/12. There was what felt like the longest silence they had had. Then, finally, a voice came on. Game cleared. Congratulations. All surviving players have been awarded with a 13-day visa. And, speaking of which, your visas have all, as of now, continued to tick down from where they left off. So please, use your time wisely, and good luck on your next game. The suited guy scoffed. As if. They all walked towards the front door. The quiet guy was the first to have the courage to take a step outside. No laser came down, and everyone else soon followed. They all looked at the street ahead of them, only to be caught off guard by the sound of the blimp above them exploding. Jeez, gets me every time, the button shirt guy said. Everyone looked at him. What? The suited man began laughing. What's so funny? Nobu asked. Look at the King of Hearts card up there. Everyone looked as the carpet card was being burned as the blimp began diving into the ground behind the building. What about it? The chatty woman asked. It looks like the king is stabbing himself in the head. Nobu ran as fast as he could, even faster than when the King of Spades was chasing him back to the broken-down homeless shelter. Chio! Chio, where are you? Nobu! Shh! Don't get the King of Spades here! Chio whispered as she came running down the creaking steps. Chio! Oh, thank God you're alive! Nobu shouted as he grabbed Chio and hugged her as tight as he could. I told you I'd stay alive, Chio responded, and it looks like you kept your promise too. They took a moment to stop hugging and look at each other. How was your game? Chio asked. Nobu thought for a moment before he cracked a smile. It was easy. Chio did a soft slap to his face as they both giggled. They hugged each other again. Suddenly, there was the sound of an explosion behind them. They all looked out the glassless window and saw the Jack of Hearts blimp crashing into the ground. Oh, now it's beaten, yeah, Nobu said. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 12/12. Finale. The two looked outside as the clouds finally disappeared and sunlight broke through. Do you want to see who beat it? Chio asked. Nah. If I know Hearts games, whoever beat it must be even more broken up than that other guy was who beat the Spades game. Do you want to try another one? This time together, like old times? Pfft, what? Hell no. Besides, I made a promise to someone. We've got to get to the outer edges of this country. We should be safe from the King of Spades there, until someone defeats him. I wonder who that guy's is. Huh? The King of Spades, I mean. What kind of vicious soul would want to take every life here? He must have had a horrible life growing up. Probably would be one of the worst criminals in the real world. Well, sometimes we tend to overthink what a person's ideology is. Whatever he's thinking as he's going around shooting everybody, I'm sure in whatever roundabout messed up way it takes, it makes sense in his mind. You're scaring me. What happened to you in that game? Chio, like I said before, we can't stick together forever. Can you just this once, I promise. Please trust me. I just don't want to talk about it. Chio was very clearly upset by this response, but she quickly took a deep breath and calmed herself down. All right, Nobu. I'll spare you this time. The end! I am finished! I have been, like, recording this video over the course of, like, half a year, like, since last fall. Yeah, I don't know why, I just thought, like, oh, like, instead of me having to force myself to do the entire story in one go, I can just do one at a time, and then I'll just be, you know, like, 15 minutes of work, like, 5 minutes to actually record the thing, and then, like, you know, about 3 minutes to put it onto my laptop, and then maybe another 7 to actually edit through it. But I am done, holy crap. Now I just gotta wait for Alice in Borderland Season 3 trailer to drop, and then drop this video. Oh my god, like, I remember, like, I was writing this story when I worked at my previous job. Like, this job that I work at now as a dishwasher, I've been, like, working there for about 2 years now. And then, like, before that, I had about a year where I didn't work at all. And then I had another job, and I just remember I was so lonely. The pandemic was so high, and it was, like, it was horrible. And I just wrote this down, and it was great. Like, people actually like it. Look, this got 7 upvotes, and then, of course, this is where people actually post their comments. This guy, it's not even worth it trying to pronounce that username, man. AJAX777. Amazing story, 10 out of 10. One of my most favorite things about this game is how it can be canon if you want it to be, since none of the main characters, aside from Aguini, of course, were met, and it wasn't changed to be the last game or something, so it perfectly fits into the story. Nice characters, too. And I responded with, hey, thank you so much. I'm so glad to see this story is still being noticed. And of course, that it's appreciated, smiley face. I would love to one day tell a different story and have the King of Hearts be an actual difficult game that blows the Jack of Hearts out of the water. When the Jack of Hearts starts, there are like 187 players left or something, and when it ends, there are only like 98, since there were only 20 players in the Jack of Hearts. 2 survived, and one of them was a citizen. That means only 17 of those deaths happened in that game. The other 72 must have occurred either in the Jack of Clubs, King of Hearts, or the get out of jail free card. The King of Spades got most of them. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to write a King of Hearts story like that by myself. I just wanted to write a more simple story. I also decided to have all the players survive, to end on a more positive note about Hearts games. Smiley face. Someone else, the username got deleted, that's a shame, but they said, the username got deleted, I wonder how. Anyway, I really like the King of Hearts game and the citizen himself because he's kind of like the King of Hearts from Alice in Wonderland, being a genuinely nice guy and all, and in a way, the game still plays with your heart. To be fair, if the King of Hearts was a little more malicious beneath the surface, I wouldn't be all that surprised either. And I like your story as well. The positive ending was something we all needed to relieve ourselves of the more gritty Borderlands games for a little while. Smiley face. I'm recording, right? Yeah, I'm recording. I better be recording. I'm recording, right? Yeah, it's recording. Okay, good. And I responded with, thank you. Yes, I was thinking of all the potential twists the game could bring, but ultimately I decided we have enough stories out there about how you shouldn't unconditionally trust people. I thought we could use a story where trusting someone actually pulled through. Sometimes our lack of trust can seriously hurt people who deserve our trust. So that's why I took all the twists I thought of and just had the characters spit them all out at the start of the game. The real twist was that there was no twist. Smiley face. And they responded with, you're welcome! Smiley face showing teeth emoji. Looking back, I also like that part when the King of Spades said, I feel sorry for you to Nobu, just to express how much he dislikes the King of Hearts game, and probably the King of Hearts himself. Kind of hints at the King of Spades' ideals about life and death, I guess. And then someone responded to the first comment saying, a Reddit book bot saying, beep boop, I'm a robot. Here's a copy of Alice in Wonderland. Was I a good bot? Info more books. So yeah, I could try and post this on Wattpad. Because, like, you know, other stories, that, like, the original stories that I have, I don't want to put on Wattpad. Because why would I give it out for free? You gotta pay at least $4.99 for my story, man. I think I can justify paying $4.99 for it. I don't know why I suddenly turned into a stereotypical Western and American accent, but sometimes it just happens. Yeah, sorry, like, I was, like, when I'm editing it, I noticed that if I plugged my earphones, there were some times where, like, the audio was coming out of the left ear more, or out of the right ear more. Like, I could try and figure it all out, but that would involve having to do the whole video again, and I really don't want to do that right now. Maybe some other day. Yeah, and there are tons of bloopers. So, enjoy those. And this video is already long enough. I just want to say how grateful I am to anyone who actually listened to this whole story. Thank you so much. On to the bloopers.
King of Heart 1 of 2, 5/8. But to their dismay, the game just kept going and going. For the entire night, the game kept dragging and never seemed to stop. Just what was this Jack of Hearts game that was taking so long? Hey Teddy, wanna interrupt the story? Wanna interrupt the story, buddy?
The king held up a timer and a button. He pressed the button, and the timer started counting upwards. Behind them, the windows turned from Hi, Teddy. I'm reading something right now. Ted. Hello there, Ted. Right there.
King of Hearts Part 1 of 2, 6/8. No wonder he came to an office building. There was a comment here that was talking about how much they were liking the story and how they were like, oh, the King of Spades is stopping Nobu from playing in this game because there must be something really horrible about this game. I wonder what it is, but I don't know if their account got deleted or if they just deleted the comment because they were disappointed with what happened to the story. I have no idea. What do you think, Teddy, yeah? Wanna say hi? Part 1 of 2, 7/8. That's the first time that I didn't have to go back or edit it all. I did it all in one go. Pretty good, if you ask me. These old categories, that's miscellaneous. I found that funny. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 1/10. I'll be down here. If you guys want to play Portal 2 co-op or something, just let me know. I have 8 upvotes on this. I'm so proud of myself. This one falls from 8 upvotes to 7 upvotes. What the heck? Hold on, let me just show you. Part 2 of 2, 1/10 had 8 upvotes, and Part 2 of 2, 2/10 has only 7. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 2/10. Everyone looked at the cameras in the stairwell. School starts tomorrow. The moment we go separate ways, the game will start pulling the strings. Soon we'll be at each other's throats and all be Soon we'll all be at each other's throats and all be lasered. Even if someone beat every other Hearts game, they would only get... Even if someone beat every other Hearts game, that would only give them 95 days. Is that right? Wait, hold on a second. Wait, hold on. 11 plus 11 plus 11 plus 12 plus 12 plus 12 plus 13 plus 13. Okay, yeah. It's not Hearts games, it's just other game. Even if someone beat every other face card game, that would only give them 95 days, a little over 3 months, and focus on meeting the game's clear condition. Sure, we might say we'll beat it once all the other games are complicated, but Sure, we might say we'll beat it once all the other games are completed. Quite a few pauses there. So far, Part 1 of 2, 7/8, and 8/8 are the only ones that I have managed to get through without pausing. This is very helpful. Number 4 and 5 are literally stacked up right next to each other, so I don't decrease the brightness a little bit. So I don't have to scroll through of finding them all the place because they're literally right there, right next to each other. Can you see that? It's the third and fourth one from the bottom, yeah. Whatever, let's just go. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 5/10. Precisely.
These hearts games are always designed so no one can beat them without feeling a little bit disgusted with themselves. If you guys aren't up to the task, you shouldn't have come here. So you can go sit on your s up here, and the ones who feel up to it can go downstairs and find him. We have to do the opposite job of a crisis helpline. You're getting a bit vicious, I think, Nobu said quietly. Yeah, haven't you been vicious in a few of these hearts games? Just how many times have you been tricked into... Sorry. Actually, let me just start again. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 5/10. Precisely. These hearts games are always designed so no one can beat them without feeling a little bit disgusted with themselves. If you guys aren't up to the task, you shouldn't have come here. So you can go sit on your s up here, and the one who feel up to... Okay, sorry, what the hell? King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 5/10. Precisely. These hearts games are always designed so no one can beat them without feeling a little bit disgusted with themselves. If you guys aren't up to the task, you shouldn't have come here. So you can go sit on your s up here, and the ones who feel up to it can go downstairs and find him. We have to do the opposite job of a crisis helpline. You're getting a bit vicious, I think, Nobu said quietly. Yeah, haven't you been vicious in a few of these hearts games? Just how many times have you been tricked into being your allies? Nobu knew the answer to him was never. Sorry, okay. I will get it. Hold on. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 5/10. We've even got, like, soda somewhere, if anyone... Shut up, you idiot. So you can quit acting like a good cop and show your true colors. It's okay, Nobu said. Hey, Ted. It's okay, Nobu said. It's okay, man. I believe you. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 6/10. Or at least, not just for that, he thought. Hi, Teddy. Come to interrupt the story again. I know, you want attention, don't you? You want to say hi to the viewers? Teddy, all they can see is your behind. There you go. Hi, Teddy. Hi there. It's okay. I know. Maybe you sense that I'm being emotional, eh? Okay, hold on. When I was on Earth, I hated my life. Socializing was so difficult, and the only people who were nice to me were all part of this sort of cult thing. I didn't want to join them. I knew what they were, but they were the only people who treated me like one of their own. I always kept it in my mind that I couldn't fall for it. I couldn't actually join them, but I had to keep some sort of act going, or else they would probably have kicked me out or something. Still, so you know what it does to you when you're forced every day. Okay, Teddy, you can't stop scratch. Okay. When I was on Earth, I hated my life. Socializing was so difficult, and the only people who were nice to me were all part of this sort of cult thing. I didn't... Okay, Teddy, seriously, Teddy, I'm so sorry. You have to be on the carpet for this, okay? I can't do the scratchy thing. When I was on Earth, I hated my life. Socializing was so difficult, and the only people who were nice to me were all part of this sort of cult thing. Are you going to scratch on that now? Oh my god, why do I even bother? When I was on Earth, I hated my life. Socializing was so difficult, and the only people who were nice to me were all part of this sort of cult thing. What the f... Now the washing machine starts! When I was on Earth... Excuse me. When I was on Earth, I hated my life. I dove under a table of... Nobu smiled. You hole. I spill out my heart to give you, and you I spill out my heart to you, and you hole. I spill out my heart to you, and you still think I'm a liar? I welcome you here. I give you everything I could desire, and yet you still treat me like... Nobu stood up and quickly held the king back. No, Kokoro. But the quiet man joined in and also held him in the... If they wanted to keep playing these games forever, or refuse. And yet despite this, as he got his lips to form the words unfortunately were not the ones he was hoping to say. King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 8/12? I don't know how long this is. Please, Kokoro. Nobu began crying as he put his head on Kokoro's shoulder, who was beginning to calm down. Not like this. Please. Kokoro finally slumped over and hugged Nobu back. Everyone was mostly quiet after that. They all took a seat on one of the many comfy The button shirt guy comforted it. Since the button shirt guy confronted him.
But just because you haven't seen the good in action doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
King of Hearts Part 2 of 2, 11/12. There was what felt like the longest silence they had had. Then finally, a voice came on. Oh my god, I need to catch my breath. Hold on, baby. So I'm trying to compose myself. The thing turns on. Hold on a moment, I want to show you something funny. This is a bouncy ball, by the way. Keys didn't microplex this video. Check it out. This is just pink lemonade in the glass here, and it's a cherry bomb donut. It's definitely a cherry bomb. There's a lot of freaking cherry that came out of it. Squid Game Season 2 animation guy. It looks like the king is stabbing himself in the head. Nobu ran as fast as he could, even faster than what the King of Spades... Nobu ran as fast as he could, even faster than when the King of Spades was chasing him back to the broken-down homeless shelter. Chio whispered as she came running down the creaking steps. They took a moment to stop hugging and looked at each other. They all looked out the glassless window and saw the Jack of Hearts blimp crashing into the ground. Just give me a moment to catch my breath. King of Hearts, Part 2 of 2, 12/12. Finale. The two looked outside as the clouds finally disappeared and sunlight broke through. Do you want to see who beat it? Chio asked. Nah, if I know Hearts games, whoever beat it must be even more broken up than that other guy was who. Nah, if I know Hearts games, I'm just starting. Who, Peter Piper picked the peppers. Seashells, I used to always think it was seashells by the seashore instead of she sells seashells by the seashore. How much wood could a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck Anyway. That's the end of the bloopers. Thank you so much. Like, dislike, comment, and subscribe. Bye-bye. bouncy ball, bouncy ball, bouncy, bouncy, bouncy ball.